What if a story you've been watching for years was never the full picture, because right now, something is shifting, and it's not subtle anymore. Behind the scenes, the world that once made this family famous is starting to crack in ways fans can't ignore. And if what's being hinted at is true, the next move could completely rewrite everything you thought you knew. So don't click away, because this isn't just another update. This might be the moment everything finally changes. There's a strange feeling surrounding this situation right now. Not loud, not dramatic, just different. Like that quiet pause before something big happens. And longtime viewers are starting to notice it. After years of following every emotional twist, every argument, every fragile reconciliation, something feels off. For over a decade, people were pulled into a world that felt chaotic but strangely compelling. A family built on a structure most couldn't relate to, yet couldn't stop watching. The tension, the loyalty, the heartbreak, it was all there, unfolding in real time, but slowly, almost quietly, that entire foundation began to fall apart. Not all at once, piece by piece, relationship by relationship, until what once felt like one complicated family started to look like completely separate lives drifting further apart. And now, the question fans keep asking isn't being whispered anymore. It's getting louder every single week. Is this the end? Because recently, something happened that caught everyone's attention. A comment that didn't seem serious at first, but the more you think about it, the more it feels like a clue. A hint that the future might already be in motion. When someone who helped build everything starts casually talking about new opportunities, it usually means they're already thinking about what comes next. And that's exactly what made people stop and pay attention. Some fans were excited by the idea of a fresh start. A new chapter. The possibility of seeing a completely different side of someone they've watched for years. But others weren't so sure. Would it even feel the same? Would people connect with it? But maybe that's not the real story, hey? Because the bigger picture isn't about one new opportunity, it's about what it represents. A shift. A quiet preparation for a future where the cameras might not be there anymore, and when you step back and look at everything happening, a pattern starts to form. Individual projects, new ventures, independent paths. At first, it all seems unrelated, but together, it tells a very different story. It looks like people getting ready for the moment when the thing that once held everything together no longer exists. Because let's be honest, the original idea that made this show so fascinating is almost gone. What started as a deep look into a shared life, full of complex emotions and constant interaction, has turned into something completely different. Now, instead of one connected story, it feels like separate journeys happening in isolation. Different places, different lives, different priorities, and while those stories still matter, they don't carry the same energy point. One of the biggest reasons people were hooked in the first place was the interaction. The shared moments, the tension when everyone was in the same room, the emotions that couldn't be avoided. But now, those moments are rare, and when they do happen, they feel uncomfortable, distant, almost like strangers trying to reconnect with something that no longer fits. That emotional disconnect hasn't gone unnoticed. The excitement that once surrounded every new episode isn't what it used to be. The buzz, the anticipation, it's faded. Not completely, but enough for people to start questioning what's really going on. And yet, the cameras are still rolling, which raises a question that's hard to ignore. Why continue when the original story has already changed so much? Part of the answer might be practical. Reality television doesn't require the same level of production as scripted shows. It's simpler, cheaper, and as long as there's still an audience watching, it continues to make sense from a business perspective. But there's another layer to this. A more personal one, because for years, this wasn't just a show, it was a source of stability. A platform that supported real lives. Walking away from something like that isn't easy. Especially when the next step isn't completely clear. And that's where things get interesting, because now, what we're watching isn't just a family story anymore. It's a transition, a slow, uncertain shift from one chapter into something unknown. There's tension in that. Real tension. On one side, a structure that no longer feels the same. On the other, a future that hasn't fully taken shape yet. And right in the middle, people trying to figure out what comes next while the world watches. And just when you think you understand it, another layer gets added. Because more and more, there's been honesty about what things were really like behind the scenes. Small revelations. Subtle admissions. The kind that make you stop and rethink everything you thought was real. For some viewers, it's refreshing. Finally, a clearer picture, but for others, it raises bigger questions. Questions about how much of the story was shaped along the way. How much was guided, adjusted, presented in a certain light. And suddenly, everything feels a little more complicated. Because if the past wasn't exactly what it seemed, then what does that mean for the future? And that brings us back to where we started. If the original story is gone, can this continue? Can something that was built on one idea survive after becoming something completely different? Or is this just the final phase before it all comes to an end? Right now, no one seems to have a clear answer. Not the viewers, not the critics, and maybe not even the people living it. And that's what makes this moment so powerful. Because you're not just watching a story anymore, you're watching the possibility of an ending unfold in real time. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think a new chapter is coming? Or are we witnessing the final stretch of something that's already run its course? And if things do change, will you still be watching? Drop your thoughts below, because this story might be closer to its biggest turning point than anyone expected. What if a story you've been following all this time was never the complete truth? Because right now, something is shifting, and it's not obvious at first glance. It's quiet, subtle, but if you pay attention, you can feel it. The kind of change that doesn't announce itself, it just slowly takes over until everything looks different. And this time, it feels serious. So stay with me, because what's happening behind the scenes could completely change the future of Sister Wives. And the next move from Meri Brown might be the biggest clue yet. There's a strange energy surrounding everything right now. Not dramatic, not explosive, just uneasy, like the calm before something breaks. And longtime viewers are starting to notice that something doesn't feel the same anymore. For years, audiences were pulled into a world that felt unpredictable, emotional, and impossible to ignore. A family built on a system most people couldn't relate to, but couldn't stop watching either. Every moment felt real, messy, and intense. But over time, that entire structure started to come apart. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly, one relationship at a time, until the story that once felt connected began to separate. And now, instead of one complicated family trying to function together, it feels like different lives moving in completely different directions. No longer tied the way they used to be. No longer sharing the same space, the same energy, or even the same purpose. And that's where the questions start getting louder, because fans aren't just watching anymore, they're noticing patterns. They're connecting dots. And the biggest question right now is impossible to ignore. Is this the beginning of the end? Because recently, something small happened, but it didn't feel small to the people paying attention. A comment, casual on the surface, but underneath, it carried weight. When Meri Brown mentioned the idea of stepping into something completely new, it instantly made people stop and think. Not because of what she said, but because of what it might mean, because people don't usually talk about their next move unless they are already thinking about leaving something behind. And suddenly, that one moment started a much bigger conversation. Some fans saw it as exciting. A fresh start. A chance to finally see a different side after everything that's happened. Others weren't convinced. They questioned whether it would even feel right, or if audiences would connect with it at all. But maybe that's not the real point. Because the deeper story isn't about one opportunity, it's about what it represents. A shift in mindset. A quiet preparation for something bigger. And when you step back, you start to see it everywhere. Different paths, separate projects, independent decisions. At first, it all looks random. But the more you look, the more it feels intentional. Like everyone is slowly getting ready for something, ready for a future where things don't look the way they used to. Because the truth is, the original idea that made Sister Wives so compelling is almost gone. What started as one deeply connected, complicated family has turned into something completely different. Back then, everything revolved around shared space, shared emotions, and constant interaction. The tension felt real because everyone was involved. Every conversation mattered. Every moment had weight. But now, that connection feels fractured. Instead of one story unfolding together, it feels like separate chapters happening miles apart. Each person moving forward in their own way, with their own priorities, their own lives, and their own version of independence. And while those individual journeys can still be meaningful, they don't carry the same intensity that once kept viewers completely hooked, because the truth is, what made Sister Wives so powerful wasn't just the people, it was the dynamic between them. The shared dinners, the uncomfortable silences, the emotional clashes that couldn't be avoided because everyone was under the same roof. Now those moments are rare, and when they do happen, something feels off. The energy isn't the same. The connection feels distant, almost like people who once knew each other deeply are now trying to figure out how to exist in the same space again, and viewers can feel that emotional distance has slowly changed the way audiences react. The excitement that once surrounded every episode isn't what it used to be. The buzz has quieted. The anticipation isn't as strong, not gone, but definitely different. And yet, despite all of that, the cameras are still rolling, which brings up a question that's getting harder to ignore. Why keep going when the original story has already changed so much? Part of the answer is simple. Reality television works differently. It doesn't need massive production budgets or complex scripts. As long as there are real people willing to share their lives, there's always a story to capture. And as long as people are still watching, even if it's less than before, it can continue. But there's another side to this that makes everything more complicated. Because for the people involved, this isn't just a show. It's been a major part of their lives for years. A source of stability. A platform that shaped their identity and supported their future. Walking away from something like that isn't easy, especially when what comes next isn't fully clear yet. And that's where things start to feel tense, because what we're watching now isn't just a continuation, it's a transition. A slow shift from something familiar into something uncertain. On one side, a story that no longer feels the same. On the other, a future that hasn't fully taken shape. And right in the middle, people trying to figure it all out while the world watches every move. And just when it seems like that's the full picture, another layer gets added, because recently, there's been more openness about what things were really like behind the scenes. Small details, honest reflections, the kind that make you stop and question everything you thought you understood. Some of those revelations suggest that not every moment was as natural as it seemed. That certain parts of the story may have been guided, adjusted, or shaped along the way. For some viewers, that honesty feels refreshing, like finally getting closer to the truth. But for others, it creates doubt. Because if parts of the past were influenced behind the scenes, then it changes how people see everything that came before. It blurs the line between what was real and what was presented. And suddenly, the entire story feels more complicated than ever, which brings everything back to one final question. If the original foundation is gone, can this still survive? Can a show that was built on one powerful idea continue when that idea no longer exists in the same way? Or are we watching the final phase of something that's slowly reaching its natural end? Right now, no one has a clear answer. Not the audience, not the critics, and maybe not even the people living it.